If you're striving to become the best version of yourself while learning from the experiences of other successful people, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to the Transformation Chamber.
Welcome back to the Transformation Chamber, episode 2. I am here with a giant who actually needs no introduction, but
who is that? Who is that?
I'll do the honors anyways, man. So Jonathan Martin, what can't we say about him? He's a man of many talents, a journalist, a news anchor, fitness enthusiast. I would say a humanitarian, and then also entrepreneur in the way that he move about the city. My dear friend, help me welcome to the show, Jonathan. Jonathan, what's up, man?
Man, I'm glad to be here. I don't know if I need all that introduction, but I'll take it.
Yeah, you got to give people their roses while they're here. So, man, listen, Jonathan, you moved here from Atlanta 4 years ago now?
Yeah, so born and raised in Atlanta, matriculated through my career, if you will, going to New Orleans and Nashville and Augusta, Georgia. So I always say Atlanta is home because that's where I was born and raised. But in between, I've been through a few other cities, working my way up.
Sweet. And you're a journalist by trade, correct?
Yeah, that's what I do. I'm a journalist, broadcast journalist, work as a news anchor here in Houston. I've been doing news, man, since I was technically, man, like 6-7 years old. I mean, that's a whole nother story if we want to talk about that.
No, I definitely want to talk about that.
But professionally, I've been doing it like 12 or 13 years.
Okay, but how does one do the news at 6-7 years old?
Well, it's crazy because when I was 6 or 7 years old, I was just obsessed with television and news. And, you know, when you're a young man, like a young boy, you come home, you want to watch cartoons or do things that kids do. And my brothers and I would always fight over the remote controller and the big TV in the living room because they were wanting to watch stuff that little boys wanted to watch. And I wanted to watch the news. I was obsessed with current events and news. I knew way too much about what was going on in the world at 6 and 7 years old. I could tell you anything. I was obsessed with the news anchors. I was obsessed with the production. And so I would like literally have a coffee table just like this one and put a chair behind it. And I would have my dad use a camcorder and like fake record me doing the news. And I still to this day have some of those videos and it's hilarious. I don't ever want them to get leaked out.
But I absolutely have to see one of these videos, first of all. But I think that's amazing. When a child can find his purpose at a very young age, the ceiling is very high, which speaks volumes to your career right now and what you've been able to accomplish in such a short time.
I appreciate that.
So what one has to ask, and it's one of those things that I always like to know when I'm engaging with people is, you know, what is your purpose and what is your why when you get up daily?
Well, man, I feel like I always tell people that despite me being a news anchor, that's what I do, but it's really never been who I am. I love doing the news. I love being out in the community and stuff. But I think the bigger purpose for me is just to be here to create. I'm a big creative person, and I think that's why I always have so many passions outside of news. But to create and leave something, that's something that my dad has always preached to me is like, don't just be focused on what you're doing and your life and your career, but what are you doing to create for other people? And so for me, I always try to think about creating things, whether, you know, it was in college, in high school, here in every city that I've been in Houston and in every city I've been in. What am I doing that when I'm gone or when I stop doing my career professionally, what can I leave with somebody else? And I think that's my why. And I saw my granddad do that. I saw my dad do that. My mom is currently doing that. So it's just kind of in my blood to always create something for others that will last and that is meaningful.
That's beautiful, man. And there's this common thread, I promise you, with all successful people that I meet is that what they're doing in their life is for other people. And so it's one thing that I try to, when we do public speaking engagements and events, and you and I have been fortunate to do some events together, it's always about other people. You know, you have to take the spotlight and shine it on them and build them up. And so, and I think that's, again, is a part of your success and why you've been able to come to Houston 4 years in Houston. And I saw you celebrate that maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's crazy. I looked up the other day on my calendar. I'm like, it's 4 years.
Yeah, man.
It seems like it went by so quickly though.
You've done so much in 4 years. What's next? Like, what do you see for yourself? What else could you possibly unmask?
It's crazy because I used to live in this space all the time where I felt like I had to constantly be thinking about the next thing. When I was in Augusta, I was trying to get out of Augusta. When I was in Nashville, I wanted to get out of Nashville. And then, when I got to Houston, I really prayed about it and I said, God, just let me really absorb everything that you have for me in this space. And so, of course, I have goals and things I want to do, but I'm really trying to also just enjoy the moment and enjoy the space and create and live, and not always live with the intention of going to the next thing. And so when I get an idea, you and I have worked together on some things. I'll say, hey, I got this idea, but also not necessarily trying to forecast what next year and the year after that needs to look like, because sometimes that keeps us from being present in the moment that we have.
Absolutely. And sometimes when you think about how big something could be or should be, it stifles you from even starting. So I think that's really important. Let's get into, the reason why we're here, transformation and the things that we go through that no one sees on social media, right? If I go to your social media right now, you're killing it, modeling, nice suits, what I mean? Just like fitness, everything. And then obviously we see you on the news, weekdays, what is it, 5 to 9, like just
9,
killing it. And one could easily surmise that, man, this guy has it easy. Like he's just constantly winning all the time. What are the moments that people should know about in order to achieve such a level of success?
Wow. Yeah. It's funny because I think that when you get on TV, people just think you got it all together. You got these lights, they put powder on you, you got these nice suits. But at the end of the day, I'm a person just like everybody else that I have, feelings of doubt and insecurity. It's like even with me being in fitness, like, I sometimes look at myself and don't feel great when I look up in the mirror, and I always haven't been the TV guy, Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people we also kind of think back that sometimes we are who we are today, but there's a part of me that still holds on to the 12-year-old Jonathan and the 20-year-old Jonathan. I'm in my mid 30s now, but like, you kind of start to think about, I don't know, just who you were and how you got to be there. Like, I'm not the most confident person. So people are like, oh man, you're so confident. Like you're on TV, you're dancing. But naturally, I'm actually a very shy person. I'm actually a very low-key, shy, kind of private, low-key guy. And people just think you're so public because you're out there and you're doing these events. And so for me, it's sometimes challenging because even though I'm out in the public, that's hard for me a lot of times. It's hard for me because that's not naturally who I am.
Wow.
And I never really got into TV and to journalism to be known, to be seen, to be out there. And so it's interesting that I liked just the news and the current events and the production. And by way of that, being on television put me out there in the public, if you will. But it's never something that I sought. And to this day, I struggle with that. I'm like, I enjoy it, but I also sometimes have to take those moments and pull back. Because it can be a lot.
Yeah, no, interesting. I believe that for any person to truly reach success, it's going to come with a stage of just uncomfortability. Like you're just going to be uncomfortable. And a lot of times we want this thing and we see the end goal, but we don't realize along the journey is going to change you. It's going to mature you. It's going to force you to face your demons. It's going to force you to face those things that you tried to run away from and you tried to hide. But when you can do that, thereby your success comes, right? And it's on the other end of what you're most afraid of, which is something I've heard a lot of motivational speakers say. So when I think about that, it's like you gotta just do it. You like throw yourself at it. And I'll give you an example for myself. One thing I really do not like to do, and people probably would never be able to guess this about me, I absolutely despise networking.
Really? And you're like, I would never know that.
So I despise networking. I used to think that networking was pointless. And, am I supposed to go in this room and just talk to these people for the sake of talking, knowing that, I don't know who you are and do I really care? But it took me getting older to realize that, no, you have to go in and naturally be yourself. And the more that you sow seeds into people and allow people to meet you, the more successful you become. And I think back to a time when I traveled with a band to Cali. We went to go stay out in Cali for 2 months, and I got invited to this networking event with movie producers and musicians and everything. And I completely froze up. I froze up. I went into the bathroom. I stared myself in the face. And what was even worse is I still allowed myself to quit.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't tell a lot of people about that story. So I just didn't think I was good enough. I thought, man, these people have these huge homes in the hills, and what am I doing here? I live in my little apartment back in Houston. I don't even think I belong here. And so that day, something changed in me. And I think that was one of my transformations, because it wasn't the fact that I was nervous or scared to network. It was the fact that I allowed myself to quit that I was so disappointed about. And I said, that'll never happen again. And so now you see, obviously, when we throw these events, I'm in everybody's face, smiling, laughing. I'm like, nobody's leaving out of here without talking to me. So,
but you took some time to work through that. And we have to be honest about our fears and honest about those insecurities that we have, and then also kind of unpack it and figure out, where does that come from? So if we feel that way, where is that truly coming from? And I think that's something for me I've had to do is like, okay, if you feel this way, okay, take yourself back to the situation or back to a moment that made you feel that way, and you can get out of it.
Absolutely. And that comes with a level of maturity. You talk about unpacking, and I'm very big into that now. You're just looking at myself and say, where did I pick up this behavior? So thinking about unpacking and thinking about traumatic experiences or things that happened to you in your past, is there one identifying moment that you can say, man, this right here changed me and I never looked back, or this moment right here is the reason why I am who I am today? Do you have any of those life events?
To be honest, I don't have one of those like really traumatic experiences that I've overcome, but I've shared with you and really haven't shared with a lot of people sort of my upbringing. I grew up in Atlanta in a household with, 2 brothers, mom and dad. Mom and dad were, well-to-do, educated. And so, I didn't have like some of the challenges that people had, but it was really hard for me because, my brothers and I, we are all close in age. And so growing up, I kind of felt out of place. I didn't really know where I fit in with my family in some ways in terms of my brothers. My older brother, Mitch, was super smart, brilliant. He didn't have to ever study. All the girls thought he was cute. People just loved Mitch. Like he was like, everybody would come like, oh, your brother Mitch. And I'm like, oh yeah, he's great. And then my brother Matthew, who's younger than me, super athletic and just so charismatic. People always would want to be around him. I mean, people would always, the neighborhood kids would come knock on the door. Where's Matt? Where's Matt? And then it was me. And I didn't really know where I fit in as Jonathan. And it was like, okay, everybody loves Mitch. I'm not as smart as Mitch. Maybe I'm not as good looking as Mitch. Maybe I'm not as talented as Matt. Maybe I'm not as friendly as Matt. And so I really felt like at some point I held a lot of resentment toward my brothers because they were winning. They were the ones that everybody liked. And it was like, I was like people joke about somebody being like kind of the Beyonce of the group and then just the other members. I was like the other members, I was the other members. Is like everybody wants Beyonce, Right. And so I kind of had to figure out where I fit in. And for years and years, even into like early adulthood, I kind of just never felt that I was good enough. And you know what it led to? It led to me sometimes seeking validation from people. And I would always need people to tell me that I was great or that I was good because I feel like I never heard it as a young child. My parents always built me up, but of course your parents are going to tell you you're great, but it was like the other people, the people at school, the people, your friends, like you want to hear that you're somebody. And so I felt like for me, even into adulthood, it was an unhealthy habit of always needing validation or seeking attention and in an unhealthy way sometimes. And so for me, I'll say, fast forward to when I lived in Nashville and really meeting some amazing people who were able to pour into me and really pray over me even, and just to, really build me up as a person. And there are a couple people, including at my church and other places, that really just helped me transform into Jonathan and being more confident in who
amazing.
I am. And there wasn't one moment, but it was really, I think, a transformative period of a year or so. And of course, my brothers and I now, we're very close. We can support each other. But it took me getting rid of some of that stuff that I had in me, that jealousy, that envy, that sort of competition with them, to really love them and to love myself.
Isn't it funny how when you have that type of jealousy, envy, it drives you to your own demise? Like you're trying to constantly be better than someone, and then the void keeps getting bigger and bigger within yourself.
Yeah.
And then you talked about not feeling good enough. Man, that is I've experienced that before, younger, and you start to seek external validation. And so one of my stories is just about feeling like this is in high school. I noticed I started dressing. Everybody wore the cool shoes, the Jordans, and growing up, I had Pro Wings. I used to wear Hakeem Olajuwons, but that's my fellow Nigerian brother. So I had Hakeem Olajuwons and Shaqs and Pro Wings. And so when I finally started making some money, I went crazy. I went crazy. And I never forget, one day I came home, and this had to be like freshman year of college. and I had on some $600 Bally sneakers, and my mom's lights were off.
Mm.
And I looked at myself that day and I said, something just doesn't make sense. You got to a point where you started making money, but the first thing you go do is run and spend it instead of helping home or pouring back into what helped raise you. And so that external validation of people saying, oh, you look cool, or man, those are dope. I was seeking that and dressing for other people instead of dressing because I wanted to express myself and how full I was. So
wow, and it's true. And sometimes you don't realize it while you're in it, and you're doing it and you don't realize how much you're seeking it. I remember there was times when I would wear a nice suit, and if nobody told me that I look good, I think, man, I'm not wearing this again.
Oh,
This is not
wow.
good. Or there's times where I would do a story on the news early in my career, and I would walk back in the newsroom, and if I didn't get someone saying, hey, that was a good story, or I like that, I would feel like I didn't do a good job. And what it leads you to do is constantly do things. You find yourself doing things to seek attention. You find yourself doing things to get the pat on the back, and you end up becoming less and less authentic. And so I feel like for me, it took getting rid of all of that for me to say, Jonathan, like, you got to be good with who you are fully. And if you wear a suit and nobody compliments you, if you do a story and nobody pats you on the back, if you make a decision and nobody agrees with you, you've got to be good with you.
Absolutely.
And when you get to that point, that's how you know you've really, arrived, if you will.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The emergence of yourself, the love for yourself, no matter what the world says. And it's a powerful state to live in.
But you got to do the work to get there. Like, it's not something that came overnight. Like I said, it took just really having people in your life that would be real with you and honest with you, who will call you out on stuff when you're being inauthentic, when you're, sort of seeking validation. Somebody to say, hey, bro, like, what you doing there? Like, that's not you. You don't need to do that. It takes having those real people to I think, get you past that point.
That's dope, man. And you talked about I've never, and as I've known you for 4 years, I've never heard you talk about people praying over you, and not to get too much into religion, but how much are you into spirituality, and what role does it play into who you are today?
Well, I've always, I grew up in a household where, we went to church every Sunday, and faith has always been a big part of my life. I don't always talk about it publicly. I'm not a person that always is on social media. But no, like God is at the center of my life in everything that I do. I believe in the power of prayer. And I've always had a lot of people in my life who will pray for me, pray with me. And I don't know, like I definitely believe in speaking out and being open with my faith. But I also am a person who kind of really doesn't, maybe that's not necessarily the best thing, but I always feel like I kind of just, it's what centers me. And it's a very personal thing for me.
Absolutely. And rightfully so. Man, something just hit me so randomly. When we met 4 years ago, you were interviewing me.
That's right. Yeah.
As it just hit me, I was like, man, why does this feel familiar? And the day we met, I was coming up to the station to talk about a concert.
And that was really about 4 years ago, man. That's amazing. And look, we worked on a lot of projects and done a lot since then.
Yeah.
And like I always say, and you say this about me, but I say this about you as well. Like, you always can gauge someone's genuine spirit and their energy. And I feel like that's something that you've always possessed. And I think you always just can tell when you're around good people.
Absolutely. No, yeah, that's why I enjoy working with you. So I gotta ask, man, we and I appreciate that, by the way, and I feel the same about you. I must ask, because the current climate of society and the world and just all the things that are going on, how are you feeling right now as a black man in the world with everything going on? And I know. And I'm happy I'm able to ask you this, because I know, given the nature of your work, you're not able to just always talk about it on TV. So, let me know what's going on in your mind.
Man, it's so hard, because I think as a journalist, sometimes, we have to play this, this role, and there's this delicate dance of, do I say something? Do I just, remain quiet? And I'm at the point now where I do speak out a lot more, because it is personal, it is painful. And one day I had a couple people reach out to me a couple days ago, and they say, are you okay? They say, you just don't look like yourself on the news. And I'm like, what you talking about? I'm fine. And I really went back and watched the clips, and I could tell that I was not myself. And sometimes I'm in go mode, reporting the news, Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd, but I never realized the toll that it's taking on me personally. And it's just really been hard. And, it's just kind of hard to explain. And I've sometimes tried to look back at, it's weird. You don't want to make it all about you, because I think now, we're seeing with a lot of this stuff on social media, everyone's like talking about me. And I'm like, am I bad for talking about my experiences? But also I want to honor the lives of those who've really, really been affected.
Absolutely.
So I kind of struggle with that sometimes when it comes to these issues of race, because I haven't had the overt racism that some of the people have experienced. But at the same time, it is painful to see people who look like me be marginalized and be criminalized and then lose their lives.
And the reality of it is that you're just one left turn signal away, or one stop sign ran away from possibly becoming one of these people. So
yeah. And I say this, sometimes it hurts, because I know sometimes I get a pass, if you will. Sometimes, like, I walk into a store and I'm got on my suit, I'm clean cut. Usually I'm decently spoken, well spoken, I guess. But sometimes, I feel like for many people, even a lot of white people, I'm the safe black guy for them. But what about my friend over there who doesn't look like me, who has dreads in his hair, who doesn't necessarily dress in a suit, and you treat him differently? And so I have to sometimes take myself out of it, because sometimes I may not be the person that's directly as impacted in terms of the racism that I see. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. How about you?
Man. So what's funny is I've actually been unjustly arrested before. When I was in college with my brother, we were walking from a party, and two cops told us that, they were looking for us. We were coming from the phone party at Prairie View A&M University, and they thought we were someone else. And I'm telling them, like, yo, we're just leaving the party, but you have to walk past a gas station. And apparently some guys had took something out of a gas station, and it was the worst feeling in the world, because my younger brother got outraged. Like, no, I'm telling you, it's not us. The cop took him and body slammed him. Wow. On the side of his face. The whole right side of his face was swollen. And as I tried to charge I don't know what I was going to do, because it was an emotional response. Yeah. One cop pointed a taser to the right side of my face and said, if you move, I'm going to have to tase you. So I had to just stand there and watch it. And then we processed. We were taken to jail. We let the cop have it in the backseat of that car with the handcuffs off. We let him have it the entire time. And, we did it. We spent the night in jail. And he just completely had the wrong people. Like we're like, and also there was one extra friend with me too, and he had to spend the night in jail. And what was even worse is, on the reason why he booked us, he ended up writing public intoxication when none of us had been drinking. Man, so people understand, like, that's why it's so personal for people, because like you said, you were one move, one left turn, one something away from being that guy. And so that's why when some of my coworkers and people, like, they seem to be so disconnected or don't understand, I'm like, you don't know what it's like. And I had to get on to be honest, a couple of coworkers and colleagues, because they were like, oh, I understand, my husband is, half Hispanic, and I grew up in an urban area. I'm like, no, but you don't get what it's like to have black skin and be treated differently. Yeah. Like, so one of the best things you can do is just to listen, not to try and act like you can relate, because you cannot relate to the black experience. And don't try to, but just listen. Absolutely, man. So, listening is important. And sometimes, like you said, people want to do more and say something, but sometimes the best thing you could do is just take the time to hear and digest what's going on, and then say, what can I do to help? Instead of telling me about, hey, I have black friends, and I like to watch Martin too. I'm just like, you're not helping. But I appreciate your effort, but I think that sometimes it's just say, what can I do to help? And then allow me to point you in the right direction, or allow me to give you some ideas of what it may be like. And then I think from there, we can start having a healthy conversation about how to overcome this. Right. And I think sometimes we don't realize, even as black people, just how painful and traumatic some of the racist experiences are for us. Because I got a little emotional the other day. Like, I was just sitting up in my room thinking about when I was back at Auburn University my freshman year. I was so excited to get away from Atlanta, be away from my parents. And I remember I called my roommate. I was matched up with this guy named Andy, and we had talked on the phone. This was before FaceTime, so we didn't know what we looked like. And
I called him on the phone and we were talking about, okay, you're going to bring the TV and I'm going to bring this. And what do you have? Like, you're a roommate. So you're excited about, kind of like your first friend in college.
Right.
And I remember we both moved in on the same day. I got there first. And so I had my stuff there and I was excited about meeting this guy because we had this great rapport on the phone. And then when he and his mom got there and I opened the door and they were like literally their jaws dropped when I said, hey, I'm Jonathan. Because they thought I was a white guy. And when they realized I was black, They were stunned. And I immediately I didn't know what to think. I was like, okay, well, maybe they were just surprised. But then 2 days later, he had moved out. And at the time, I just kind of blew it off. I'm like, okay, no big deal. I'll just have a room to myself. So that's great. Like, and I ended up having a room to myself because my roommate moved out. But for me, I didn't realize till years later how much that hurt me.
Yeah, man.
That hurt my feelings. And I went through that in high school a couple times where, I was good. I was a black guy. I was good to, hang out with you guys at school. And I was good enough to, play on the basketball team with you guys. But when it came to having the parties at your house and staying over, I wasn't the one invited.
Not invited.
And so I didn't realize how painful that was. So what I'm trying to say to people is that it's not just somebody calling you the N-word or arresting you. It's situations like that can bring back a lot of pain, and people have to be sensitive to that.
Yeah, man. Thanks for sharing that, first of all. And I'm glad you were able to overcome that. And those type of experiences truly create trauma. And I appreciate, and I always have to go on record saying this, I appreciate those people of other races who have stood in the fight with the African-American people and the African people all together across the globe. So we'll just try to lighten up the interview.
Yeah,
I didn't know we was going to go there.
I know we got kind of heavy, right?
No, it's cool. So, just looking again at your portfolio, you are a super heavy fitness enthusiast. And a lot of people probably didn't know, but they know now you are a phenomenal dancer.
Am I? I don't know about that.
So tell us a little bit about, one, just your fitness journey, how you even fell into being such a actively person who seeks out being better every day in the gym and working on your body. And then this dancing journey of yours, I want to hear more about how it got started and where it's going.
All right. Well, first with the fitness, I started working out when, of course, I played sports in high school, but I really started working out when I was in college. I remember a couple girls used to call me skinny in college. They used to just make fun of me because I was a skinny boy with this big head. Freshman year. So I kind of was like, look, let me get in the gym. Like I'm not about to be skinny for the rest of my life.
It's usually the ladies that make
us. And I'm like, so we're going to get in the gym and we're going to get bigger. And I just was go in the gym. I was overwhelmed. I didn't know what I was doing, but I'm such a competitive person, man. I'm so competitive, not necessarily with other people all the time, but just even within myself. I'm like, I got to be better. I got to do better. And I remember just year after year, I would learn more and learn more. I would watch people. I would read magazines. And so over the years, I just really was like, man, I actually like this. And I like the way it makes me feel. And the thing about fitness is that you're in many ways, in most ways, at least for me, doing it for yourself. I love the progression of getting better. And I'm just a person. And I think you know this about me. We always talk about excellence. And I don't like to do anything with mediocrity. I don't like to do anything half-assed, if you will. So for me, if I'm going to work out, I'm going to go hard. If I'm going to work out, I'm not just going to work out to be decent. I want to be great. And so along the journey, I've just gotten better and better and learned from people. And I realized how much it inspires other people. Some people come to me asking me more about fitness than they will about journalism or about other stuff. And I'm like, for real? But yeah, I think it's opened a lot of doors for me just to showcase that side of me.
Yeah, no, you are, for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people, at least I can speak for Houston, you broken the mold of what a traditional news anchor looks like. Like, I'm like, dude, okay, you're a professional and you're killing it on the news, but then you're also in the gym and you're working out and then, you're doing all these videos. And then on top of which, to be a dancer, like I have never, it just,
man. And it's so funny that you say that, but I was so afraid of that. I was so afraid when I moved to Houston. I was like, I got to be like everybody else. I got to go and wear my Navy suit and this dark suit and the red tie. I've got to fit into this box. And for so long, I was trying to fit into this box and I was afraid, like, I can't be on the news as the lead anchor and be dancing and then be having, fitness pictures out there, because there were even some people who were like, who's this guy? What is he doing? But I realized when I started being my authentic self, when I started showing those layers, if you will, everybody that I know was like, dude, like, you're no longer just a news guy. Like, you're cool. Like, I want you to come to my event. I want you to come speak at my school. And so what I always tell people is that you got to just be yourself and be more than one thing. Yes, I could be a news anchor, but I can be these other things as well. And when you peel back those layers and are not afraid to show them, it's amazing how people will gravitate to you because they want to see those layers.
Absolutely. I think Jay-Z said it on his B-Sides concert, the latest one. They lied to you when they said that we can only do one thing well.
Yeah.
Especially, he was insinuating people of color, like we can do more than one thing well. And I think you epitomized that.
I appreciate that.
Another thing is, I've been talking about this with some friends, and I think you and I talked about it a little bit, how authenticity is the new currency, right? Along with transparency. The more authentic you could be, not trying to fit into certain modes and things like that. People just want the real you now.
Yeah.
Especially through social media. It's like, okay, you took all these pictures with all the filters and the makeup and stuff like that, but people connect with the organic version of who you are.
Yep.
And people can
they want that because I think everybody can come off as being this super polished person with their best clothes on, but it's the moment that you are yourself. It's funny because my brother Matthew, and like I said, we're very close now, my younger brother, he told me one day recently, he said, I love seeing you dance, bro. I was like, why? He's like, because that is when you are your most authentic self. He's like, you are being Jonathan. You're not worried about what people are thinking. You're not trying to, be so rigid. He's like, you're just being you, the Jonathan that I grew up with dancing around the house. And so for me, dancing is a way to kind of just express myself. It reminds me of growing up in Atlanta with my brothers, just dancing around MC Hammer and whatever would come on. And so I say that to say, even now, when I dance, that's when I get the biggest response from people.
Absolutely.
Because they feel like that is you being authentic. That is you being you. And that will resonate with people more than a story that you do. It really will. I guarantee you.
I mean, no one wants to be sold anymore.
Yeah.
Like, so when you do that, it's just people being able to connect with you and see you in your element. So you talked about your brothers a few times so far. And I also want to touch on, you came up a little different than a lot of African-American people, right? In Atlanta, there's a lot of successful Black people in Atlanta. And you happen to come from one of those families with, both parents at home. And it's not the usual struggle story to overcome, ramen noodles, just trying to make it. You had a healthy and quality upbringing. And that's not to say that people, like myself who grew up in the hood didn't have one, but there's no true, I guess, story of coming over oppression and struggling and lights off and things like that.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. I was blessed. My mom and dad, both, I said, educated and did their thing. And my dad's entrepreneur and became successful owning businesses and stuff. And I've often sometimes felt really bad about having that upbringing because, you go in a circle and you're around 10 people and everybody's talking about how they grew up in the hood and how they, lost their dad or they never knew their dad. And sometimes I felt inadequate when I would be asked to speak on panels. I was like, I can't speak on this panel to young boys, or I can't go out and help people because I don't have this struggle story. So how am I going to minister to them? How am I going to, relate to them? But I realized that everybody has a story. And my story, like we've shared, is maybe not one of, I grew up in the hood poor, but I still overcame a lot of things that a lot of these boys are still trying to overcome.
Absolutely.
And so I really try to just use the excellence that I learned from my dad and my mom to just pour into other people. And that's what I did with a couple of the initiatives I've done. And when I speak to young boys, it's not about like, oh yeah, I grew up in the hood, y'all, and I know what y'all are going through. Because no, I didn't grow up like you guys, but I still can pour into what I have. And a lot of them really relate to that. And I've learned that.
Yeah. And what I realized in talking to you in the last event where you were on the panel speaking, it resonated to me that you are the goal for a lot of us, right? You are the goal. I want my son to be able to say, no, I didn't grow up in the hood and with a struggle. And, and so never feel bad about that, right? And I know you've overcome that, but that's what we're all trying to get to. Yeah. So just, having the hood story is not some type of blessing, right? But if you have the hood story, make sure you do what you got to do to get over it. But the goal is to have children and raise them in a way where they can graduate without college debt and they can grow up and go out and do amazing things and not have to feel bad about where they've come from.
Yeah, that's so true, man. And I appreciate that. And that was really my dad's goal. He really wanted his sons to grow up where they didn't have to worry about debt. They didn't have to worry about some of the things that he worried about. My dad didn't grow up poor, but he certainly didn't grow up affluent. And so, his dad, struggled and wasn't able to get loans to start a business. So my dad was really determined to go and make sure that he was even greater and better. And he wants us, my dad now wants his sons to be even greater. He's now pushing us to do more. And I think that's where I get that like boldness, that audacity to create things, whether it be something that's lucrative or just something that is beneficial to the community, because my dad instilled that in me. Like, no, you go do your own thing and to be better and to create more for other people and to create a legacy. And legacy is not always, as we've talked about, something that has to do with money. Legacy is just something that is lasting, that will be beneficial to people in the future.
Absolutely. All right. Speaking of legacy, you have been able to create and curate some of the coolest events in Houston, and they all, like we talked about earlier, are focused on helping people. I know you have Beyond the Game, right? You have the Brunch Body and Soul event. And then there's the, of course, we and I partnered on Sweat TX, which was your vision, and you allowed me to come on and help out with that. And I'm sure I'm missing a few other things. And then along with hosting, just speak to, what is it that you hope your legacy to be with all these initiatives that you're putting forward?
One of the things about I appreciate that. I always keep saying that because I do things, and sometimes when people list them back, you're thinking, wow, I guess I did create those things. But unlike some people, I never need my face on a lot of stuff. I never need my name on everything, because what I'm trying to do is create things for other people that, like I said, if I leave Houston at one point, that it can go on and it can continue. And I just like to create things that make other people feel good about themselves and that create change. I always believe if God blesses you with the platform, it's your duty, it's your obligation to go and like pass that on to somebody else, to like pass, I don't say pass your platform on, but use the platform to help others. And that's what I really want to do. And so I just always like to create. I'm always full of ideas. And I think that's one of my biggest fears in life, is having a bunch of ideas and not being able to flesh them out before I'm leaving this earth. So I always am like, okay, during this quarantine, even I've had so many ideas, and I want to flesh them out when this is all over. And I just like helping other people. I don't really know. I just like, it's what I do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you said flushing all your ideas out, and it reminds me of Eric Thomas and Toby Nwigwe. They always talk about dying empty, right? Like, you should get everything out of you while you're here on this earth. And even Les Brown talks about, the most wealth is in the grave, because that's where all the ideas that were never born. And so, and that resonates with me. You have to pour out, and you have talents, you have to use them before you lose them. Yeah. And there's a parable of the talents inside the Bible. If you subscribe to the Bible, it just talks about, if a man has 10 talents and he uses them well, he's going to get, 20 basically, just to summarize it. But if you have one talent and you don't use it well, and then, God will take that one talent from you and give it to the man with 10 talents.
You got to use them. You got to use, man, that's so profound. You got to use those talents. And that's what I'm all about, is just doing as much as I can. And of course, we all are busy, but it's important to just like do what you can while you can, because I know I may not always have the time or the ability to do some of the things. But like, I just think sometimes, man, the amazing platform I have here in Houston, like better this community where you are. I think some people also try to go so big and so lofty. It's like, no, you can start where you are. You don't have to be on TV. You don't have to have 50, 60,000 followers, but you can start small and do something impactful. Like I said, you and I worked on Sweat TX, like promoting fitness and health around the city. And it was just amazing to see how many people came out to the events and how many kids were, just enriched by that, and how much the city was partnering with us and ready to
Absolutely.
Go. But it's amazing how when you just believe in your gift and you believe in your ideas and don't necessarily wait for others to co-sign on them, how people will just take on and take hold to what you're doing and support you.
All right. Great stuff. All right. I have to do this with you. I wasn't going to do it this episode, but I'm going to do it. I do something called rapid fire.
Okay.
So we're going to do rapid fire. All right. I'm going to explain it to you, because my last guest, which I love dearly, Ashley, she didn't get it at first, but then we got to it. I'm going to throw out a word, and you just say the first thing that comes to your mind. All right.
I thought this was going to be either. I thought this was going to be either or.
No, you just throw it out there. All right. So, for example, I say, purple, and then you say Barney, right? Just putting it out
you
there.
got me.
Don't think.
I'm usually thinking on my feet really good in the news, but
don't think.
Y'all ain't gonna catch me saying nothing crazy. So
hopefully we can catch Jonathan Martin saying something crazy, and I'll have it here on the Transformation Chamber. All right, here we go. I'm gonna just throw out some words, man. Nothing too tough. All right, number one, success.
Success, man, happiness.
All right, the point of rapid fire. We're gonna do this again as fast as you can without thinking. But take your time. I don't want you to say anything that you don't want to say. So here we go. Let's try family.
Wholeness.
Beautiful. Let's try legacy.
Fulfillment.
Let's go with motivation.
God.
Favorite movie.
Bad Boys.
Favorite color.
Yellow.
Cool. That was a completely meaningless exercise, but I think people just like to know that.
Man, like I was worried. I was like, what's coming? Yeah.
People like to know that type
but
of
I think well on my feet, but I'm such a, I'm normally the one doing the questions.
Right.
So now I'm like, wait, no, you asking me questions, and now I got to kind of, yeah.
I do that. It's so funny what you find out in those things, like Bad Boys being your favorite movie, your favorite color being yellow.
But then when you start thinking about like, oh, but I like this movie too. But, because I normally am the one asking the questions. But yeah, yellow and blue are my favorite colors, like royal blue and yellow. But I just say yellow.
Nice. No, it's cool. It's one of those things. You get to know people better just by throwing out questions. And so another one I like to do is the obituary question. Have you ever considered what you would like your obituary to read?
I would just like my obituary to just talk about just the person that I was. I'm not a person that really likes to list a lot of accolades. Oh, he did this and he won this award, or he got nominated for this Emmy. I just want people to feel like I was a guy that created, changed, and made people feel good and did something that affected people's lives. I know that sounds very generic, but I don't want to be that person that has a long list of what I did in awards, because that's not what means a lot to me. And it's funny because a lot of news anchors and news people always go after a bunch of awards. They enter all these awards, and people are like, Jonathan, how come you don't enter these awards and you don't go to these award shows? Because like that's not what makes me feel good about myself. What makes me feel good is when one of these boys from beyond the game reaches out to me and talks about how I inspired them. What helps me is when someone reaches out to me and has questions about fitness and says that I've inspired them to now get healthier. That's what makes me feel good. And those are the types of things that I want people to say and feel about me. And that's what to me is lasting and important and fulfilling.
No, that's beautiful. You know what? I want to give you an opportunity, if you don't mind, to just share about Beyond the Game, and then also even Brunch, Body and Soul, just so people can know some of the things that you've curated here in the city of Houston as a news anchor. Right?
Oh man, it's so funny because you asked me that, and I'm like trying to not talk so much about myself, and that's something I've had to really get better with too, is learning to talk about what I'm doing and myself. And so I will, since you asked me. But Brunch, Body and Soul is an initiative I started basically to encourage Houstonians, particularly, to eat healthier. And so we have brunch events, well, at least before COVID-19, to bring in chefs, to bring in people who have healthier alternatives to food. So it's not to say go vegan, but it's to say, hey, you can eat healthier. And we bring in the brunch, of course, which is the food, the body, which are some fitness influencers, and then the soul really take on a couple meanings. The soul meaning the soul music and just things that are good for the soul and good conversations with good people. And then Beyond the Game quickly is an initiative I started in mainly Houston schools, but even some outlying counties, where we basically go around to talk to young men of color to encourage them to think beyond the game, which is beyond sports. And we all know that a lot of our young black men, they see sports, they see music as the way out in some communities. And so we're trying to say, hey, look at these other guys who are successful, who have done great things, and maybe they played sports but are now doing something different, or maybe they never played sports but they also are super successful, just so you can see that this guy's an astronaut, but he wasn't the best basketball player, but look at him now, like he's made history in his own way.
That's amazing.
And that's been my goal. And I will say this, out of anything I've ever done, that is the thing I've gotten the most feedback on, the most support on. And people really, that really for some reason resonates with a lot of people, black and white. They say that is the thing that you've done
Absolutely.
that has touched me the most. And so it's one of the things I want to continue.
I mean, the youth are precious, right?
Yeah.
And the more we can pour into them at a very young age, hopefully the better they can grow and become for society. So, man, kudos to you for doing that. Thank you for doing that. If nobody's ever told you, and continue on in any way I can help and support, I'm.
You always have, man, and I appreciate that.
So a couple of little things before we get out of here. The people want to know. The people want to know, what are you listening to? What are you reading? What are you watching? It doesn't have to be motivational, inspirational. If it is, fine. Just people want to know, what is Jonathan doing when no one knows what he's doing?
Man, okay, so it's funny. I don't watch a lot of TV because, and I'm not a movie person, and I don't watch a lot of TV because I'm always, I feel like, around TV and stuff. So I kind of don't watch a lot of TV. I will watch some ratchet TV a little bit here and there. So I'll be on Love and Hip Hop a little bit. There we go. Every now and then. And yeah, I'll watch a couple of these reality shows, but I try to not soak in too much of that. I try to limit a lot of that. I'm recently, actually, this book is here, The Mamba Mentality by Kobe. I just got this
book. Rest in peace, Kobe.
So I'm really about to dive into this. Kobe, of course, I don't need to give him any kind of introduction. We all know how influential and inspirational Kobe was. And so I'm diving into that book. And then Keion Henderson's The Shift, I'm also reading. So I've been kind of busy with COVID-19, focusing on some other things. But those are the two books I'm kind of in the middle of diving into right now. And listening to, man, believe it or not, my brothers make fun of me because I love a lot of stuff from like 90s and 2000s. I still like a lot of old Chris Brown. I listen to a lot of like old Atlanta music growing up, whether it be like T.I., Ludacris, Outkast, of course, was like a huge influence in our household. I know every Outkast album song. So I still will put on those songs, and I love gospel music too. I grew up around a lot of gospel music, a lot of friends who are in the industry. So I love hip hop too, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like the music of today is not necessarily me. So you'll find me listening to some Stevie Wonder too. I love Stevie, one of my favorite artists of all time. So I'm kind of an old soul a little bit.
No, that's cool, man.
So I don't have anything to like. I mean, I like Future, I like the Baby and all that, but I'm not. Those aren't people that I really. That's not really on my heavy rotated playlist.
Right. Maybe if I'm going out or
exactly.
No, I feel you. And old school Atlanta, you can't get mad at any of the music that came out of that.
I mean, that's and to me, because I miss home a lot of times, and because I haven't seen my family in a while, and like when I listen to that music, it just reminds me of growing up in Atlanta. So any Outkast, any Ludacris, Usher, even Monica, and like some of the people, it's like, man, I remember that was a song back, in 6th grade or 7th grade. So it really takes me back to a place.
Did you see Luda and Nelly versus?
I did. I saw most of it. They had a few technical issues, but I saw most of it.
I think Nelly took an L on that one, man.
Yeah. And it was funny because I think Ludacris had some you forgot, he had some really huge songs. But I think when you looked at the catalog, you're like, oh, I forgot. You almost forgot some of the things that Luda was involved in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but Nelly went diamond, so that's one of those things that only him and Outkast, I think.
Exactly. So you got to kind of, But if you're looking at the catalog, it's like, I don't know.
All right. Before we get out of here, any parting advice, either that you've received, the greatest piece of advice you've received in your life, or just parting advice that you want to give to people who are out there striving for excellence, such as yourself, people who are just looking to get over a hurdle, a hump, whether it be racism or just self-doubt and all the things that you've been able to overcome and amass this persona that you are now of success and constantly generating ideas and wealth and just building up. Anything you want to give to the people?
Man, one of the biggest pieces of advice, while it's not super, super profound, but it is something that has helped me, came from a lady named Demetria Kaladimos, and she was a news anchor in Nashville, and it was my last day on the air, and she surprised me. And she said, Jonathan, you will really go far if you continue to be who you are and not who they want you to be. And when she said that, I had to think, what does she mean by that? But I think for so long, I think we've all, or a lot of us, try to be something. We try to feel like we're good enough. Like I said, for me, for so long, I didn't show my authentic self. But I realized when I started being who I was and not who they wanted me to be, whether it would be bosses or whether it be friends or whoever, it changed my life when I just really started being authentically who I was. And even though it may not have been as exciting as the side that some people would want me to be, but it was still who I was. And I think when you can walk around being who you are and go through the growth of figuring out who you are, it just allows you to just be happier overall. And so I think that's what I would say to everyone is just like figure out who you really are at your core without the need for validation, without the need for someone liking you, but just doing the work, because it takes work. Because I tell people all the time, the confident Jonathan that people might see is not who I was 6-7 years ago.
That's beautiful, man. And I'll just piggyback on that. We are all created individually different. There's only one of you, so why even try to be a poor copy of someone else?
Mm-hmm.
Just be yourself, and you will be, one of one.
Mm-hmm.
But again, do the work to build up on your persona, on your character, on your habits, and reach the height of your success and reach the height of yourself. So.
And surround yourself with some amazing people who will build into you and pour into you. That's been, monumental for me, because I think that when you have people who really want to see you succeed and really pour into you like you, it does wonders. It really can change your life with just having the right people around you who want to see you get better and want to see you get through that hump. That's huge.
Yo, Jonathan Martin, I can't thank you enough for being a part of this. How can people follow you?
Okay, so I'm on social media. You can find me Twitter and Facebook and Instagram at JMartinTV or Jonathan Martin Fox 26 on Facebook. Hit me up. I respond to messages and, hit me up.
Yo, much love, my brother. I really appreciate you. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to episode 2 of the Transformation Chamber. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. To find out more about Jonathan Martin, follow him on IG at JMartinTV. To find out more about the Transformation Chamber, follow me at Joshua T. Dada or visit my website at joshuatdada.com. Until next time, peace.